What a comeback, I should say, back to business for the markets, and what a move really. Don't go by the Nifty implied open. We should bring up the Nifty intraday chart, because what looked like once again a quiet start picked up just so smartly. A 350-point move coming in on the Nifty alone, and pretty much all sectors fired up. You had capital goods, autos, and especially financials. They were the ones which really brought the mojo back, as did the FIIs. They too had a buy figure, a minuscule buy figure from the DIIs, but yesterday it was really an FII-driven story for our markets at least. Made it back almost to that 24,200 print. And it's good to see that it was, not just the benchmarks, but the broader markets as well. There too you had a very good and handsome market breadth at your hand towards close. So we did pretty well. But let's see whether it's a fab finish to the first trading week of the calendar year or not.
Like they say that what happens in the first week of a year stays for the rest of the week of the year. So I really hope the kind of price action... I really hope
the benchmark is Thursday and not Monday to Wednesday.
Exactly. So I really hope that, what we've seen yesterday is the real true blue picture of what lies ahead. So let's really understand, bhai, kal kya hua? What happened? Why did we see that surge? And that surge was not because of large FI buying, but because of short covering, and largely in the FNO market. So it was the FNO activity which in a sense did the magic for us. And the fact that Nifty has found support at a crucial juncture time and again and successively in last couple of months, and we managed to crawl above the 200 DMA, that is impressive to say the least. What caused or what triggered this bout of short covering? Difficult to attribute to one particular factor, but it was encouraging data from autos, OK GST data, and a view that the economy is out of its slumber. So a combination of high frequency data, a bout of short covering in the FNO market, and an impressive close above the 200 DMA, I think that really was the factor at play. So we've discussed what, now let's discover where. So the two factors which would be at play, or I would say three factors which would be at play. One would be the sentiment, which is the pre-budget and liquidity. Second would be what happens to global market in the run-up to, by the time there would be change of regime in US. And third really would be that how markets essentially are positioned ahead of the earnings season. These factors really would be at play. So it would be tricky to call that, okay, yesterday's price action in a sense is really the harbinger of what lies ahead, because this Jan is not an ordinary Jan, it's an extraordinary Jan. Why? Because there is a change of regime in the global market. There's a litmus test when it comes to the economy and the economic data. And third, this time around, even though the importance of budget over the years has got diluted, but this time around, looking at the shape of the economy, I think the budget expectations are not diluted. They are running decently high, because everybody wants the government in a sense to come out and do something special. So yesterday's price action impressive. I hope it stays like this, but there are a lot of vectors at play which would decide how the month of Jan would move.
Yeah, a lot of vectors ready to watch out for. January seasonally has been on the weaker side, but the start to the month so far looks like has been okay. So we'll take that with both hands. Just taking a look at the FNO snapshot, because as Nnikunj was pointing out, it was the short covering that really pulled the markets high to begin with, because the shorts were covered to the tune of almost 10,000, and then further longs were added. So of course the weak hands getting out of the system, and then some positivity coming in as well. The longs that were added were close to 21,000. So that's something to watch out for as well. In fact, the total net long position has now improved from 13.5 all the way to almost 20%. And of course, the FI short has come down to 80% versus 86%. There was a positive figure when it comes to FII cash activity as well. Nnikunj, I don't know if it's too early to say if the FII flow is back or not, because of course the dollar index has managed to kind of notch another level. It's at 2-year high, 109.5. Clearly not something which is very profitable for the dollar money to come into India right now. But at least for what it's worth, the shorts getting covered and then longs being added as well.
See, Nisha, 109 for the dollar index is not like a very conducive kind of an setup for flows in a sense to come back in a very strong manner. So you decisively cannot say that this market is now out of the woods and we've had a great start to 2025, and this market in a sense is only going to go higher. I still feel that the interplay of the dollar index with the FI flows and how emerging markets would move in next 2 or 3 weeks would be tricky to call, considering that we've got news from China that they've put the restrictions on some US companies, and I expect that, you know, in the run up to the change of regime, at least in US, you will hear more noise on tariff wars and especially on China. So it would be tricky to call that how exactly the financial markets would move, but the strength in the dollar index is something which would be the niggling factor, which in a sense will act like gravity to markets move, you know, higher. I think the trick, Anisha, would be to figure out next 2 or 3 days, will this market be a sell on the rise market, or this market will become a buy on the dip market? And that, I think that template would be tested in next 2 or 3 days. We've had a good close yesterday. Now, if this market has to sustain, then every dip which is intraday or which is even, you know, like a half a day dip will be bought into. And if this market will not sustain, the rally would be sold into. So hopefully same time next week, we would know the direction of the market, whether it is out of the woods or whether it still continues to be a market where you want to sell on every rise.
And provided that scenario really plays out, because for now it seems that there are two very distinct possibilities, one domestic and the other one global, considering the Santa rally was clearly a miss. So is it going to be a pre-budget rally that we are stepping in for? And other than that, of course, you know, with Trump taking charge, whether the dollar outperformance is going to continue or not, because that in itself challenges the India move.
Yeah, so the dollar setup, I think, is the talking point. But the pre-budget part this time, I think, is the interesting one. And the reason why we are bringing it out, you know, Aisha, because time and again we've said that, okay, budget was crucial, budget was important, but it's no longer market moving. But I think post-COVID, this time budget, I think, is of far greater importance, purely looking at the construct of the economy. Because this budget, in a sense, where we are really talking about an economy which suddenly has got, which suddenly has lost its acceleration. How can we really go back to that 7% mark? What would be the plan in place really to take care of stroking back the consumption? What would be the indication on government capex for next year, which in a sense has been the missing part? And hopefully we should get some sense as to where the direction for the direct taxes would be and how liquidity is going to be coming back, at least in bottom of the pyramid. So this year's budget enjoys a far greater degree of importance, purely considering that this is really going to be the first real test of the government, because post-COVID the economy has been on the right side, tax collections have been on the right side, but now the economy has surprised on the upside. But now how can this budget really fix and deal with the disappointment? So that really would be the market narrative, and that in a sense will keep everyone guessing. So I think we are in for a lot of budget buzz, budget rumors, budget assumptions and budget chatter.
If you like this video, then like, share and subscribe to ET Now.